It is time to revisit the year that was WCW in 2000. Of course, this is part of my ongoing mission this year to complete that fateful time in WCW's existence and try and fill in the last bit of gaps, the last pay-per-views from the year I've not yet looked at. And so last time we did this, I decided to redo Super Brawl 2000, and now this time I'm diving into a show I've never looked at all the way before, and now I kind of regret having done that, as we are looking at WCW's Great American Bash 2000 from June 11th at the Baltimore Arena in Baltimore, Maryland. The show was nominated by Michael Lee, Ron Gleason, Glenn Thompson, Hawk 494 Edward, CJ Haas, and Jason Young over at patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret. A lot has taken place not just since my Super Brawl recap, but just in the month since the last show on this timeline I covered back at Slamboree 2000. David Arquette screwed his supposed friend DDP to help Jeff Jarrett regain the WCW championship, and then right afterward, Mike Awesome threw Kanyon off the triple-decker cage and onto the ramp below just as the show was about to go off the air. It was considered pretty tasteless at the time because it was the first wrestling show back in the Kemper Arena since Owen Hart's passing the previous year. But as the year goes on here, there are other things for WCW fans to worry about and other similarly ridiculous stunts that will be treated with the same amount of gravitas as the Kanyon stunt was. But the news is not all bad. Goldberg is back from his big arm injury he suffered when he punched out a limousine window. In the weeks leading up to his return, we'd be seeing the Goldberg monster truck stalking the parking lot areas every week, occasionally crushing cars. It was a really big deal. The fans were really hyped to see that Goldberg monster truck. They were very excited to see him come back from injury and take on the new blood after all this time of them running roughshod. Goldberg finally does return to TV. He comes back, kills Tank Abbott in his return match, and is back on his merry way. He has aligned himself with Kevin Nash in his war against the new blood, and of course Bischoff and Russo doing everything they can to keep Goldberg away, to the point where on the go-home week they suspended Goldberg and arrested him. And they actually open up this show with the recap of what happened, and the big question is Goldberg going to show up? Well, damn, I mean, he was suspended and arrested, so it's kind of a double whammy. I don't know, guys. The show earned 85,000 pay-per-view buys. It's up from 65,000 the previous month at Slamboree, but down 100,000 buys from the previous year. Just a hair over 7,000 in the arena on this night. Tony Schiavone, Mark Madden, and Scott Hudson are on the call for this one. And we open with a match for the Cruiserweight Championship as Lieutenant Loco, aka Chavo Guerrero of the Misfits in Action, takes on Disco Inferno of the Filthy Animals. What a wild ride the Cruiserweight Championship has been on in the year 2000 especially, but just in the last few weeks or so, because several weeks ago it was Crowbar and Daphne who beat Chris Candido for the title in a mixed tag team matchup involving Tammy Sitch, and then Daphne beat Crowbar outright to become the Cruiserweight champion for a little bit. Then she lost it in a triple threat match on Nitro to Lieutenant Loco, but she wasn't the one who got pinned. So anyway, Chavo brings out what looks to be a grenade, but they say immediately it's a toy. Then Loco says, "If you mess with me, I'll kill ya." Ah yes, the more charismatic of the Guerreros. So when we last saw Disco Inferno on this channel at Super Brawl 2000, he was just beginning his partnership with the Mamalukes, and by this point it's dissolved because one night on Nitro, Disco just came up to Eric Bischoff and said, "I don't want to manage the Mamalukes anymore. I want to hang out with my friends." And Bischoff is like, "Okay," and now he's aligned with Conan and Rey Mysterio and Juventud Guerrera as part of the Filthy Animals. And by the way, I love Juventud at this point right now. It's so stupid and annoying, but I also can't stop laughing at it when Juvi is pretending to be The Rock, where he's just up and stolen his shtick, where he's opening up his matches. We're going, "Finally, the juice is back too," and he says like the wrong name of the town. And so it's very corny, but I can't help but laugh at it. But if you can believe it, it's Disco who's the huge dork in this group. He is definitely the odd man out of the Filthy Animals. And there are just way too many people at ringside, which seems to be the case every time you see the Misfits and the Filthy Animals colliding in some form or fashion. It's confusing because at this point, in the year. Filthy Animals are heels, part of the New Blood, and the Misfits in Action are faces, kind of separated from them, but like you really can't tell who's a face and who's a heel in this matchup because they're all kind of acting the same. Disco launching Loco into the ropes early on, does a little dance. Loco with a head scissor to the outside of the ring. Disco's beaten up by the Misfits, and the Filthy Animals don't do anything about that. Disco is just repeatedly outmaneuvered. Nice dive by Chavo to the outside. Disco catches him. Konnan just kind of falls over. Tony cannot keep the names of the Misfits straight because, of all the different rankings and stuff. He calls like Corporal Cajun, Captain Cajun, and he got Private/Major Stash confused. I mean, that is only a recent development that he changed the name. Disco with an axe handle from the second rope. Then in comes a silly old man in a military uniform. Great. Another character. Apparently we saw him like 6 or 7 months ago on WCW programming, and then he just goes away for a while and he comes back to TV just last week, and they're like, remember him? He immediately starts hitting on Tigress, and K-Dog shoves the old man down. The Misfits get really upset. The referee is distracted. Hoovy hits a reverse DDT. He goes for the Hoovy elbow and misses. Last dance by Disco. Corporal Cajun comes in and drops him as the ref tries not to look. He puts Chavo on top of Disco right in front of the referee, and we get a 3 count. Turns into this big brawl. The Misfits are left laying. Major Guns has no choice but to revive the old man by first tearing her top off and giving him mouth to mouth. Ooh! And wouldn't you know it, the old man is a creep. I give it 1.5 stars out of 5. Not a great way to start the show, and I know that both guys can deliver a better match than this. We've seen a better Disco Inferno match on the review than this, and so it was just too chaotic. It was too much of a cluster with all these different bodies together. It's just mad chaos and confusion. And the thing with the old man that confuses me is I'm pretty sure that they later reveal that the old man is General Rection Hugh Morris's father. But it's so funny because he does not give off that impression that he's protective of the old man in any way in this segment, even though the announcers call him Pops. But I think they only reveal later that he actually is Hugh Morris's dad, but you'd think he would be a bit more protective of him. Seems pretty ambivalent about it in this segment. It makes me feel like maybe at the time even they didn't know that's what the payoff was going to be. Backstage, Eric Bischoff is with his lackey, the Cat Ernest Miller. The cops tell Bischoff there's nothing to worry about, and Bischoff says nothing will stop them from making their big, earth-shattering, industry-changing announcement. By the way, I know that I said in Super Brawl review that the James Brown segment was kind of the way that Cat became a babyface, but I forgot this whole run where he becomes, a heel for a long time as part of the New Blood. We're in the promo zone, and Mean Gene Okerlund's with the Mamalukes. Vito says he's not sweating anything because he's the hardcore champion. Meanwhile, Gene says, isn't Johnny the Bull the champion? They leave. There's some kind of tension there, and Gene with a great ad-lib as the segment ends.
Hey, Vito, I'm asking you a freaking question over here.
So yes, the hardcore hierarchy in WCW has changed drastically just in the last few weeks. The big storyline for the first couple of months of the New Blood angle was that Terry Funk was the hardcore champion, and Bischoff tried everything to get the belt off him. And finally, on an episode of Nitro, Bischoff himself took out Terry Funk and beat him to finally get the belt off of him. I've changed the rules. Wrestling's the worst now. Then on Thunder, Bischoff immediately hands it off to the Mamalukes, and they argue over who's the champ. So it's kind of a co-champion situation here. They're taking on Kronik tonight, and those guys have gone on their own way after leaving the New Blood. This is a matchup for the #1 contendership for the tag titles. I thought Kronik were the champs at first, but I mistook those giant metal panels on their jackets for center plates. Vito's still wearing his belt as the match is underway. Brian Clark absorbing Johnny's attacks at first. Bull's able to knock him down with some kicks, and the Marmadukes take over. Vito still wearing his belt. Brian Adams with a huge full Nelson slam onto Johnny. Big stalling gutbuster on him as well. Kronik comes back with a double backdrop, and I love how Scott Hudson's like, oh, they're going to hit him with the high times, because it sets up the same, but it just turns into the double backdrop. So without missing a beat, Hudson's like, they're going for the high times. That fantastic double team maneuver, they're softening him up for it. Oh, brilliant. Vito is damn near spiked on a fireman's carry into a brainbuster, good lord, which is probably why he spends almost the rest of the match powdering and talking to the announce team, completely oblivious to what's happening behind him, or Johnny the Bull is getting the crap kicked out of him. Because God bless him, he is trying. He recovers from a botch, but then eats the canvas. The high times to Johnny as Vito remains totally totally unaware, and Kronik wins. I give it 1.5 stars out of 5. I mean, the match had a couple of cool moments in it, but it was mostly a way to, get the Mamalukes over as idiots, I guess, more so than Kronik as future tag title contenders, but there you go. The new interview lady, Pamela Paulshock, is in the promo zone interviewing Diamond Dallas Page, and he's going to face Mike Awesome in what Pam calls an ambulance match. And she tells him that Awesome says he's going to end your career. Well, they all got to start somewhere. I just wonder if Pamela ever finished. DDP says he doesn't buy that Mike Awesome is the career killer. He's got a warning for his soon-to-be bitch ex-wife, and he says he's got some motivation, inspiration, and, good God, stimulation coming special for Awesome. So we go to the ambulance match now as Mike Awesome takes on DDP. As I mentioned last month at Slamboree, Awesome kind of further affirming his career killer status by throwing Kanyon off of the cage, and it puts Kanyon in the hospital. He's got this big neck halo. The first scene they show you on the Nitro after Slamboree is this moment in the hospital where DDP is like checking on him, and then the new blood comes in. They just come up from behind a curtain and they attack and they lay everyone out. It's hilarious. But it's all part of DDP's ongoing war with the new blood, and also in particular his wife Kimberly, who betrayed him in the main event at Spring Stampede. And so really Kim is now this very annoying, kind of obnoxious heel character, and doesn't really have a lot of redeeming qualities other than being an obnoxious character, but she doesn't really ever get hers in this storyline, which is kind of a running theme with most of the people who have these sort of positions in the New Blood storyline. It's kind of a pattern. DDP bringing Kanyon out to the stage for moral support. He and Awesome brawl to start things off. The referee is laid out within seconds. We get some chair fighting like samurai warriors, according to Shivani. Page punching a chair into Mike's face. Awesome comes back. He produces a table from under the ring, then hits his bomb to Page through it. Then we get the EMTs at ringside. They pick DDP up and put him on the gurney, and they roll DDP off. I hate this rule in WCW. I feel like I saw this in another kind of stretcher type matchup recently with them, where it's like, oh, the referees are the ones who do the dirty work. Why? It's the wrestler's job. Awesome hitting one top rope splash, then another. He teases a third one with some chairs as Kanyon looks on. He goes up top. DDP shimmies real quick. I wonder if he'll move. Sure enough, he does. Then out comes Kimberly. She runs to the ring and smacks DDP in the back with a big floppy rubber lead pipe. Out comes Miss Hancock, who's been having issues with Kim lately, and she drags her to the back. They fight their way to the top rope. DDP hitting the diamond cutter off the top. Mike is loaded onto the stretcher. When Eric Bischoff appears, he looks to threaten Kanyon with a chair. DDP decks him, but then Kanyon gets up from his wheelchair and attacks Page. Diamond cutter off the stage and onto the floor. Camera kind of misses it, and Kanyon's totally fine as he reveals a New Blood shirt, helps load DDP onto the stretcher and into the ambulance as Bischoff's theme continues to play throughout all of this. Awesome wins. I give it 3 stars out of 5. It's actually one of the better matches on this show. I think it had the best pacing and some good intensity. I just hated the Kanyon turn at the end, because this is during a time period where a lot of people just get swerved and they turn heel. Usually just for the reaction, even if it doesn't help things. Because at a time when too many people are doing that, I think Kanyon is a character that definitely shouldn't have done that. Or could have done it differently, at least, because they really couldn't keep their story straight. Because after the pay-per-view, they're like, well, wait a minute. Like, was Kanyon brainwashed by Eric Bischoff? Was he really hurt and then Bischoff got in his head? Or did he fake the injury the whole time? And this was all planned from the beginning before Slamboree. And then they kind of like have their cake and eat it too with this, because they're kind of like saying both. Where Kanyon's like, oh, I was faking that injury. And also, by the way, Bischoff told me if I wanted to be a star, I got to take out DDP. So they're doing both then. And it's just like, yeah, it really makes the whole impact of what happened at Slamboree really meaningless because you're just telling everyone, hey, everyone, you already know this is fake. Now we're telling you this is absolutely fake because he's totally fine. And he faked the whole thing. He's hunky-dory. So then nothing matters. Stay tuned for later in this show. Up next, a boot camp match. That's last man standing rules as G.I. Bro of the Misfits in Action takes on Perfect Shawn Stasiak, one half of the tag team champions. Now, for these shows that I review, I always try and do my due diligence. I always try to watch, at least a month out of television programming in the build so I can kind of get the context and everything. But despite that, I still don't know why G.I. Bro and Shawn Stasiak are fighting here or why the tag titles aren't even on the line, because Shawn and Chuck Palumbo won the belts like a week or two ago. Those aren't even in the conversation here. Why is this match happening? I don't know. And oh man, look at Booker T rappel down that zip line. He's got to do a little bit of scooting, a little bit of swinging to finish getting down there. Come on. There you go. Shawn Stasiak wearing some war paint of his own and wearing nearly identical pants to his opponent. He's got a mic on the stage, but I can barely hear him because the crickets or the cicadas or the birds are just too loud.
Oh, was that it? Was Chris Kanyon coming up? Hang on a minute. Look at Perfect Shawn Stasiak.
Take a good look at what a real, or should I say, perfect soldier of fortune should look like.
G.I. Bro's on fire in the early going, leaping back slap on the outside off the apron. My God, they're brawling into the crowd for a second. Booker hitting an awful chair shot to the head, and the fans boo it. Booker just goes, ah, a lot.
Knows what it takes to win. You think my money.
Stasiak is busted open, but he avoids the 10 count by the referee. He cuts off Booker after the corner punches. I guess rope breaks are a thing in a boot camp match. On the outside, big suplex by Stasiak onto the steel ramp. Not enough to keep Booker down. And in fact, there's a lot that cannot keep the G.I. Bro down. He gets up like a lot, like at 8 and 9 on these, and it just goes on and on. It's very one-sided. Booker's getting his ass kicked a long time in this matchup, and the fans begin to get restless. The boring chants have begun. Uh-oh. Booker finally fires back up, hits a well-timed counter into the bookend. Bro climbs the turnbuckle as Stasiak slowly gets up. We get a missile drop kick. Out comes Chuck Palumbo with the Lex Flexor. He's thwarted at first, but Stasiak hits a big low blow with it. Booker is still getting up as the announcers once again have to remind the fans of the relaxed rules in WCW, which is why you see so many low blows and, outside interference and weapons going unchallenged by the refs. Anyway, Booker somehow fights the odds and lays them out. He KOs Stasiak with the Lex Flexor. Shawn is out and G.I. Bro wins. I give it 2 stars out of 5. I thought the match was okay. It just ran a bit too long, and I think the fans also could sense at a certain point that enough was enough. Booker looks strong as hell in this, in the way he just kept coming back and everything. I guess in hindsight, it really goes a long way in building him up as like a world title contender in a month's time. But I've never liked the booking trope, no matter who does it, of one wrestler beating up your tag team champions all by themselves. That has never sat well with me. Kind of a silly match, and yeah, it's just crazy to think that like Booker's gonna shed the G.I. Bro thing very soon after this very failed experiment, and just kind of be Booker T again and suddenly be in the main event. We're in the locker room. We see Kanyon digging through DDP's bag. Mean Gene shows up and asks him why he did what he did, and Kanyon says nobody showed up to the hospital more than Eric Bischoff, and again goes into the thing about how Bischoff told him to be a star and everything, again kind of contradicting all the storytelling we're doing at this point. And Kanyon's like, I was told I gotta take out DDP, and that's exactly what I did. I took out DDP. And then Gina's like, well, actually, Kanyon, we have this footage to show you of DDP not taken out. He's up on his own feet being carried out. And then in the background, we see the Goldberg monster truck. Ooh, so we're planting the seed for that. But meanwhile, Kanyon's like, well, I'm not just sure that I took DDP out. I'm positive. I'm positively Kanyon. This is the beginning of the positively Kanyon angle, which is actually really hilarious. But you've also made Kanyon look like a complete idiot because he just said he took a guy out, and then they show footage of it not being the case, and he's just like, nope. Great storytelling. Tables match up next as Shane Douglas takes on The Wall, and I'm not entirely sure why this match is happening either. Shane Douglas has a microphone in his hand, Scott Hudson predicts he'll make a swear, and is immediately proven right.
You Baltimore pieces of shit, sit down!
Shane says that while the new blood gets rid of Hulk Hogan and Dick Flair, ooh, what a burn, he's gonna make history at The Wall's expense. Let's not have a regular tables match, we'll have a best of 5 tables match. The announcers are great because they seem to think that it's going to be like best of 9 and they have to go through 5 tables each, which sounds really exhausting. So The Wall comes out rocking one of about the dozen looks he had throughout his career. Nice evasion of the franchise neckbreaker. The action stays in the ring for a while. Shane with a nice stalling front drop. They go to the outside, Wall with the choke slam, Shane landing the long way through the first table. A moment later, Wall slams him through another table, and it's at this point the commentary finally clears it up and says, no, it's best of 5. So someone has to go through 3 tables. Thank goodness it's not like 5. Shane is not at all selling having gone through 2 tables, hits Wall with a low blow, who doesn't sell all that well either. Suddenly we see a ladder and some tables stacked up by the stage. Who put those there? They're fighting atop the ladder, Wall gets punched and falls through the tables, but the weird thing is, it doesn't look like 3 tables. It looks like a big platform. It looks maybe like 2 tables. But either way, the Wall goes through them and then the referee calls it and Shane wins. And so he came back down 2 and just took out Wall with one punch off the ladder. Fantastic. And then, because, Wall had to get his heat back, he recovers immediately and chokeslams the referee through another table on the outside. I'll give it 1 star out of 5. This match really killed the magic of the tables match for me, though. No teases, no close calls, just I'm gonna slam you through a table, and you're gonna slam me through a table, and I'm gonna slam you through a table. And that's it, There's no selling, and the ending was kind of bullshit too. Just not a great match. Back to the parking lot, we see a black Dodge Charger roll up to the arena, but it's not Goldberg, it's Hollywood Hogan. Sorry I missed call time, dudes.
Did you see how scared Hogan was? He was sweating like a nitro girl before the pregnancy test comes back. Yikes!
Up next, an Asylum match for the U.S. Championship as Scott Steiner defends against Tank Abbott. So what is the Asylum, you might ask? Well, apparently this is Scott Steiner's specialty match as of 3 weeks earlier when they first busted it out. And it's this tiny domed cage that sits inside the ring. It's kind of like the opposite of Hell in a Cell in about every conceivable way. And also, the more I think about it, it kind of looks like a prolapsed Lion's Den match. I'm sorry. The match starts off wonderfully. The cage is not lowered yet, but they're throwing potatoes at each other. Scott throws Tank around. Then we hear the ring announcer say that per Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo, it is now a 2-on-1 match with Rick Steiner being added to Tank's corner to establish a level playing field. The Asylum slowly lowers to the ring as the fans chant for Goldberg. The beating continues. Tank grabs a steel chain. He wraps it around his fist. And then, and only then, after weeks of 2-on-1 beatings, weapon beatings for his brother, suddenly seeing Tank Abbott with that chain wrapped around his fist, he's like, no, man, it's too hard, it's too much. Let's go easy on him. Let's not kill him in the ring with our 2-on-1 advantage in the Asylum, the steel cage with no door. What are we doing? Rick steps in to take Abbott's lethal right hand, but in doing so also kind of hits Scott in the face. Scott low blows Tank, decks him with the chain, then locks him in the recliner, and the referee calls it. Steiner wins and retains the U.S. Championship. 0 stars for this one. Now Rick Steiner gains a conscience? What the hell was that? Oh great, now a limo's pulled up. So many different vehicles tonight I could soil myself. And it's Ric Flair accompanied by his wife and his kids. Damn, do call times mean nothing to these folks? Mean Gene's in the promo zone with Hollywood Hogan, back in black, brother dude Jack. And Gene says, tonight might be the final time we ever see you in WCW or in pro wrestling. And Hogan says, and maybe not Mean Gene. Hogan says we, meaning the Millionaires Club, can stay around as long as they want because they're etched in stone. And when they were branding Hollywood, they were talking about the good, the bad, and the real ugly. huh? And he says he's gonna get real ugly on Kidman. And he says, as for guest referee Horace, blood is thicker than new blood, dude. And he talks about how being back in black is like, it's all about reinventing yourself. It's about changing with the times. Like, so going backwards? He puts over Kevin Nash and Goldberg, and he wants to take this Hogan thing to the next level, says he. And he references the good, the bad, and the ugly once again as we go to the blow-off of this godforsaken feud, Hollywood Hulk Hogan taking on Billy Kidman. Kidman has been somewhat of a chosen one, no pun intended toward Jeff Jarrett. But anyway, he's been picked by Eric Bischoff to fight Hulk Hogan for the last several months on TV and pay-per-view. Kidman has gotten away with some fast ones here, and Hogan's been leading the FUNB charge, the FUNB Maniacs. And just recently before this, he was wrestling in the red and yellow prior to Spring Stampede. Then with FUNB, he's got kind of the jeans and the vest gimmick on, but now he's reverted back to Hollywood Hogan, brother. It's gonna be a new dark side. It's like, hey, Mick Foley can change his gimmick, brother, so could I. So if Hogan wins, he gets a world title shot at Bash at the Beach, and if he loses, his career is over. And Horace Hogan, his nephew, is the guest referee. He's supposedly part of the New Blood, but Kidman does not trust him. And you see Horace there with the big old knee brace over his custom painted pants. Hogan starts off with some punches. Lots of punches. Then some more punches. Hogan looking very bored as he continues this very one-sided beating. Horace giving his uncle a whole lot of leeway in the match after coming down hard on Kidman. Hogan has the weight belt. He gets to whipping. He even grabs a chair, but Kidman drop kicks it in Hulk's face and takes over for a second because Hogan's back on the attack soon afterward. Kidman drops Hogan with a DDT on a chair. Well, he tries anyway. We seem to be getting some conflict between he and Horace as well. The fans are finally making some noise in this match for the first time and chanting for Hogan as he begins to him up. They work their way around the ring. Hogan with the hip toss to Kidman onto the announce table, and it breaks. Out comes Tori Wilson, Kidman's lady. What's she doing out here? She brings out a pair of brass knucks, hands them to Hogan. Kidman hits Hogan, who knocks Tori off the apron. Kidman uses the knucks on Hogan. Still not enough. Kidman's had enough of Horace's officiating and knocks him out with the knucks. Then Tori hits him with a low blow. Now Hogan has the knucks and lays out Kidman with them. The 3 count. Hogan wins. His career is safe, and he is going to go on to face the WCW champion at Bash at the Beach, which I'm sure is going to go very smoothly. I give this match a half star out of 5. And you know what? Kidman tried his damnedest to bounce off Hogan as much as he could. I don't think I've seen a wrestler look more bored to wrestle a match that they were booked to win than Hogan does here. I mean, you can tell this is beneath him. He feels this is absolutely beneath him. And, we talked about this before. There's a better way to build up a Hogan-Kidman matchup than what they did here. They totally rushed it. And, boy, it really suffered as a result. Hogan doesn't look any better destroying Kidman like this. It's not like it really saves his hide any. But it's just a one-sided, what a awful blow-off match this was. Backstage, Bischoff is heated at what he sees. Security shows up and tries to assure Bischoff that everything's under control, but Eric remains skeptical. But hey, you know what? After the big emotional roller coaster ride that was of the risk of Hogan's career ending, you know what we need next? Another match where we see a possible legend ending his career right after that one. It's another retirement match, father versus son, as the Nature Boy Ric Flair battles his own 21-year-old son, David. So as we have covered here before, Vince Russo has brainwashed David Flair. The big swerve happened the previous month at Slamboree. He believes Russo is the father he never had. There's the infamous moment on Nitro where Vince and David and Daphne storm the Flair family mansion and just cause all sorts of chaos there. And the constant mockery and harassment of Flair and the family, like throwing retirement parties for him, David beating up his younger brother Reed because he's jealous of the attention that Reed and the rest of the other kids got. I love that scene in the when they go to the house and they go to this unfinished attic and David's like, "This is where I grew up. They fed me fish heads every day." It would have been a fine story if David Flair were a good wrestler. Like if he were competent and were a good performer and had stage presence, then maybe this could have been something. But at this point in the game, it is very much a one-sided affair. David does not have the gifts as a performer that Rick does. And so Rick has all this pressure to not only make his opponent look good, but it's also his son. And there's also these things that I'm sure he's got going through both of their minds as to making this work. But I think, had David been a more competent wrestler, I think that you would have been a lot more interested in this angle. I mean, there's emotion there, and when Flair and David are talking to each other, when Rick and David are talking to each other in the ring during their confrontation on Nitro, like, you definitely feel something there, and I think that was neat, but like, the whole Vince Russo thing really bogs this down, and David's lack of ability and lack of experience also bogs it down. We cannot forget about a match leading up to this was when Flair fought Russo when Rick fought Russo in a one-on-one match on Nitro, and David is the guest referee, and it ends with Rick getting Russo in the figure four for ages. He is in that hold for longer than most other world champions, and he's not tapping, he's just flopping around like he's in the hold forever because they're waiting for this moment where they dump all the blood, the red viscous fluid all over Flair and him mid-hold, and it's so freaking hysterical. Just what a moment this is. Oh, and by the way, did I mention that in the time between Slamboree and Great American Bash, Ric Flair has won and lost the world championship twice? Because he beats Jeff Jarrett in his street clothes, and then he is stripped of the belt soon after that on Thunder, and then Kevin Nash beats Jeff Jarrett to win the championship, and Nash just hands it to Ric Flair, who's in his street clothes, and then he loses the belt that night to Jeff Jarrett. So in the span of like 2 or 3 weeks, Flair has become a champion another 2 times. And that's not even part of this storyline with he and his son David. Pamela Paul shocked backstage, telling David good luck, he's gonna need it. Damn, why is she so unprofessional? Vinny Roos saying this is no fairy tale. There's no little pigs running around here, bro. David Flair is gonna end a legend's career tonight. 21 years of torture, bro, coming to an end tonight in Baltimore. Mean Gene is with Flair the Elder. Gene says that Russo has poisoned the well. Flair shouts he's going to style, profile, and walk the aisle one more time. Go Hulkster go! Woo! Anything to say about your son, Rick? In comes the Flair family. Wife Beth, children Megan, Ashley, and Reed. They're gonna sit at ringside for this emotional match. David has changed shirts since the promo he cut about a minute ago, and this has to be one of the first times in a while that Flair has wrestled a match in his gear. It starts out with a lockup, David with the headlock and a terrible grip. Rick is selling like the Dickens for his son, but he cannot get over the top rope. Fighting on the outside, back into the ring, David with a suplex. Rick gets back on the offensive and starts laying in those knife-edge chops. Here comes some more chops on the outside. David Flair kinda hits the ropes and ejects his father from the ring. Vince Russo on the outside decks Rick with the baseball bat, then handcuffs him as the referee is blissfully unaware. Okay, why would you further handicap Rick like this? It's bad enough he's got to wrestle his son who isn't fully trained. Now he can't move his arms? David locks in the figure four. Russo's helping out. David is like halfway out the damn ring at this point. He's got some awful mounted punches. Holy guacamole, those make mine look good. Russo gets involved again. That prompts Reed Flair to interject. Vince shoves him. Reed hits him in the dick. He grabs the keys and brings them to the ring. Little Nate breaks Big Nate out of the cuffs as David tussles Reed's hair a little. Rick is now back on the offensive, and what the hell is 14-year-old Charlotte Flair doing handcuffing Vince Russo? That is a weird visual. Even weirder is when Vince calls 14-year-old Charlotte a bitch. David with shades of his father doing the eye poke, going up top, but Rick wisely sees it coming and peels him off. Russo looking real stupid with his hands held up like that with the cuffs. Ric Flair puts in the figure four, David submits immediately, and the father has defeated the son. After the bell, Russo gets his, and Flair celebrates on stage with his family. Then Russo's on the mic and goes, "Hold it right there, you piece of shit!" Russo promising this is not over and he wants to retire Ric Flair, and the Flair family respond with crotch chops. What a visual. I give it 1.5 stars out of 5. This match is only slightly better than the previous retirement match with 2 fully trained wrestlers. The real kicker to this is that one night after on Nitro, Flair is goaded into another matchup, Rick I should say, with Russo. It's going to be Rick and Reed versus Vince Russo and David Flair. And Russo beats Rick so badly with the bat that Beth, Rick's wife at the time, throws in the towel, and they retire Flair, and they shave his head, and they send him packing. That's the last match Ric Flair has in the year 2000. And it makes you wonder, why couldn't they have just done all that with David before, since you want to maybe make something out of him? No, Russo's clearly the most important thing. We got to get him over on Flair. We go now to the Human Torch match as Sting takes on Vampiro, and the story here is that Vampiro is one crazy son of a gun. The former brother in paint with the Stinger has betrayed him, and he is just a very kooky individual, very dark, very spooky, and he wants to set Sting on fire. It's not enough. He keeps pulling him into under the ring through a hole in the canvas, and he comes out covered in strawberry jam. He's got to set him on fire. And I loved this one promo they cut on Thunder to help put that over, where Sting is standing in the ring, Vampiro's on stage, and then suddenly the ropes have caught fire. Oh my gosh, what a visual, what a moment this is. And then the camera just goes wide enough where some of the flames are going out, and you see the fucking ring crew people with their lighters going like reaching up and like getting the ropes lit. Like, this is a taped show. You couldn't redo that? You idiots! Vamp comes out first and oversees a large torch being attached on stage. Then Seek and Destroy plays in the arena. We see the torch suddenly being pulled up to the rafters, and it's Sting. He's atop the set and has kept the torch hostage, and he tells Vampiro if he wants the torch, he has to come up here. Vampiro's all mad now. He's freaking out. He's asking Mark Madden, did you know anything? And then Mark Madden keeps going, Ian, I didn't know. Ian, I didn't know. God, we gotta blur those lines again. Fuck off with that. Oh, Ian, I'm gonna call you your real name now. Shut up. So then Sting just rappels down and meets him there. Why not just stay up and wait for Vampiro to come up to you? And Shivani with the great line saying, there atop the Great American Bash vision sits the eternal flame of WCW tonight. The match starts in the ring. Sting looking strong at first. He goes for his splash. Vampiro gets out of the way. Sting is draped over the top rope, and then Vampiro grabs his gas can and pours it all over the Stinger. They fight their way to the stage, and they both climb up the set. Vampiro kicks Sting off, and he takes this like short splat on part of the stage, and they go from like, oh my god, the match is over, it's got to be over, he's really hurt, to him like just getting up and chasing after Vampiro. It's like, oh, okay, it's not that hurt. They're both atop the set. The lights begin to flicker as they fight near the torch. This angle is crap, intentionally so. Vampiro hits Sting with a DDT. The lights cut out. Then we see Vampiro chasing off Sting with the torch, setting Sting on fire. Then Sting falls off the top of the set and crashes onto the stage. Vampiro wins, and the announcers are completely aghast at what they saw. They act again as if this is 100% real. Oh my gosh, Steve Borden's a father, and this man who's clearly not a stunt double, clearly not getting in position and doing the stuntman jump onto the fucking platform, the crash pad below, didn't just happen. Oh my god, this is the worst thing to happen in professional wrestling. Oh, Steve Borden. And they show the replay, and they're like, why are we showing this? And I'm like, how do you have so many angles of this supposedly awful, spontaneous, uncontrollable moment you had? You have all like 18 cameras on them, including some you haven't seen before. You know, show us more how fucking fake this all is. You know, you're screaming to the rooftops, oh my god, this is real, this is tragic, when this is like one of the most safe looking stunts I think I've ever seen, and it's so obviously not Sting, especially after they spend so much time telling us that, hey, this is all scripted, hey, it's all a work, and hey, Kanyon wasn't really hurt despite being thrown off the fucking top of the cage and through the floor or whatever. Oh my god, he's fine. And so yeah, this guy's gonna be fine. He's gonna be great. He's gonna get dusted off, he's fine. -1 star is what I give this match. This was fucking brutal. In the Bischoff zone, interview lady tells Eric it's time to come through on the promise of the big earth-shattering news. What's the big surprise? Well, Eric says he's all in a tizzy because Goldberg is still lurking about, so the big surprise is there is no surprise. Yeah. On we go mercifully to the main event for the WCW World Championship as Jeff Jarrett, the chosen one, defends against Kevin Nash. It was a long, winding road to get us here. Like I mentioned, Jarrett won the belt back at Slamboree with the help of David Arquette, who we never saw in WCW again after the Nitro following the pay-per-view. It has since bounced between him, Flair, Vacant, Kevin Nash, Flair again, Jarrett again, in 1 month. Nash also had to run the New Blood Gauntlet to retain his #1 contendership status. Russo loved doing that. He loved putting title shots on the line every week on television. This was no different. Jeff Jarrett makes his way to the ring. Then the Cat shows up and he's asking for everyone's attention. Oh shit though, that bird is back.
Me. It's all about me. Is he gonna sing?
It's time to injuke his celebrity guests, in his words. The guest bell ringer is K-Dog, Conan. The guest timekeeper, Rey Mysterio Jr. Special belt keeper, Disco Inferno. And special ring announcer, Hoovy the Juice. Yes! And to top it all off, the Cat is the guest enforcer. Boy, the deck sure looks stacked against Big Sexy. And I'm looking at the timeline in my video of this, and there's like 20 minutes left, and I'm like... Nash overpowers Jarrett in the early going. He hits those elbows. Everybody stops and looks at something. It's nothing. Fighting on the outside, they're brawling into the crowd. They make their way back to the barricade where Ray hits Nash in the left knee with a chair. Tony Schiavone does do a good job kind of explaining like the history of leg injuries and surgeries for Nash over the years. But interesting line where he says, Kevin Nash has always had weak legs. Jarrett is working the leg forever. This goes on a very long time. Nash gets a rope break just in time for Conan to clock Big Daddy Coolata with the ring bell, but Nash still kicks out. Nash fights off the filthy animals, Hoovy, then Ray. He ducks a belt shot. He decks Jarrett with the belt. Then Disco attacks the ref. Great. Hoovy hits Nash with a chair. Goldberg chants start to fill the arena as the Cat steps in as the official. Nash fights off the animals again as Jarrett hits him with the stroke. Nash kicks out. Jarrett grabs the guitar and goes for a super El Kabong, but Nash catches him with the chokeslam. The Cat starts the cover, but then pulls a Nick Patrick and starts selling his eye. Nash hits Miller with the jackknife, then one to Jarrett. Charles Robinson tries to come in, but Rick Steiner shows up. Then comes Tank Abbott. Scott Steiner runs in as well. There's a beatdown on Nash. Wowee, this is a whole lot of bullshit. Suddenly we hear the roar of the Goldberg monster truck. The truck rolls in and then Goldberg's music hits. Da man has finally arrived. The filthy animals flee. Goldberg looks like he's gonna spear Jarrett, but then he spears Nash instead. Schiavone sounds like he's having a stroke over this as Mark Madden just keeps going, surprise! Jarrett makes the cover and he wins the match. After the bell, Russo and Bischoff show up. They enter the ring, they stare down Goldberg, and then all three of them hug it out. And the garbage comes flying into the ring, as it should, as the show fades to black. I'm going to give this 1 star out of 5. The match itself, it's whatever. It's the ending, the turn at the end, which honestly I can remember when that was building up. I know a lot of people kind of like predicted Goldberg was going to turn heel here, and sure enough, that's what happens. And like, what a boneheaded move that is. And it's not even from like a looking back, boy, I can't believe they thought that was a good idea. Like that night, the very next day, like immediately afterward, people are going, wow, that's a really stupid idea. Why would you turn Goldberg heel? Like they didn't want to boo Goldberg. They were excited to see him come back. The people didn't buy into it. Goldberg didn't buy into it. He did not want to turn heel. And like he expressed as much literally like in interviews, like on air in kayfabe interviews with people. He's like, oh boy, this has been a bad idea. And it's the worst possible time for them. Again, it's not even like, oh, they weren't aware of like the circumstances that were about to befall them, you know, going into this. This was already a time when the face-heel balance was already majorly screwed up. Where like the only viable contenders at this point now to face Jarrett are like Kevin Nash, Scott Steiner, and like Booker T's not really part of the conversation yet, but he will be relatively soon because like DDP and Ric Flair are leaving after this for a while, and you've turned Kanyon and you're turning Goldberg now. So it just seems like a really bad choice for a lot of different reasons, and it's just one of the more terrible booking decisions that was made during that time when the company is getting their ass kicked by the WWF. Then the last thing they should do is have like the biggest homegrown, natural babyface they've had since Sting, and turn him heel just for the lulz and for the swerve, bro. That said, my grade for Great American Bash 2000 is a D-. This is certainly a Great American piece of crap, this show. I mean, I went to it with no expectations. I knew it was going to be bad, but I didn't know how bad it was going to be. Not uncensored 95 bad, let's make that very clear. I think that this was still a bit worse than Slamboree, for instance, a bit worse than Super Brawl, but yeah, not great. Like, the one good match you could mine from this wasn't even, it was bogged down by another like senseless swerve. There's just, yeah, not much to really redeem from this. And boy, it's crazy to think that Bash at the Beach is going to happen 1 month from this, and then WCW will really never be the same after that. But if you want to hear more about that, you can go check out my much older review of Bash at the Beach 2000, which is in a number of playlists. You can check that out. We will not be returning to WCW in the year 2000 for a little while here on the channel, not until Fall Brawl, several months from now. But the next time on the Classic Pay-Per-View review proper, we are going to go a little ways back for the World Wrestling Federation, and we're going to get the very first in-your-house pay-per-view. And the pay-per-view model for the Federation will never be the same again after they introduce these shorter shows with lower price points. We're going to look at that next time here. But until then, what did you think of this video? Give it a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe to Wrestling with Wregret. Hit that bell icon for all the notifications. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.